In his first 5 games as a starter, a completely unknown player scored more points than anyone since the league merged in 1976. More than Michael Jordan, more than Shaquille O'Neal, more than anyone. That player was Jeremy Lin. But the magic of this story isn't just in that number. It's in the fact that just 2 weeks earlier, that same player was homeless, bottom of the NBA food chain. He was so close to oblivion that on the morning of February 4th, 2012, his agent delivered the final, crushing ultimatum. If you don't play well tonight, this will probably be your last game in the NBA. This is the story of a player who wasn't just on the brink of getting cut, he was on the brink of becoming a legend. To understand the miracle, you must first understand the abyss that came before it. Jeremy Lin was not just a zero in the context of the NBA, he was an anomaly in the entire ecosystem of American basketball. He was the son of Taiwanese immigrants from Palo Alto, a brilliant student who found his way not to a basketball powerhouse like Duke or Kentucky, but to Harvard. Harvard is a factory for presidents, for Nobel laureates, for titans of industry. It is not a factory for NBA point guards. To the rigid, pattern-obsessed world of professional scouting, he was a ghost, a player from a world they didn't recognize or respect. His entire journey was a symphony of closed doors. He led his high school to a state championship and was met with the crushing silence of 0 athletic scholarship offers. At Harvard, he was a star, but in the eyes of the NBA, he was an Ivy League curiosity. On draft night in 2010, 60 names were called, and none of them were his. Each rejection was a message. You are not what we are looking for. You don't fit the mold. He fought his way into the league through sheer will, earning a non-guaranteed contract with his hometown Golden State Warriors, but he was buried on the bench, a footnote in a league of superstars. They cut him. The Houston Rockets picked him up, a fleeting glimmer of hope, only to cut him on Christmas Eve. Imagine that flight home, the dream officially pronounced dead on the eve of a holiday, the quiet resignation that it was finally over. He was, for all intents and purposes, a failed professional basketball player. It was in this moment of absolute despair that the phone rang. On the other end were the New York Knicks, a franchise drowning in its own kind of despair. They were a team of big names and bigger disappointments, a dysfunctional collection of talent in the biggest market in the world. They signed Jeremy Lin not because they saw a hidden gem, but because they needed a warm body to fill the 15th and final spot on their roster. He was an emergency signing, the last man on the last train. His arrival in New York was the picture of insignificance. He was so far down the depth chart, so close to being cut again, that he didn't even have his own place to live. He became a nomad, sleeping on his brother's cramped couch on the Lower East Side. This is the rock bottom of the NBA dream. Not just fighting for a spot, but fighting for a place to sleep while your career hangs by a single fraying thread. On the night of February 3rd, 2012, that couch was unavailable. Lin ended up on the floor of his teammate Landry Fields the night before what everyone believed would be his last game in the league. The deadline for his contract was days away. The message from the front office was clear: show us something, or you're gone. This wasn't just a game. It was an execution date. The zero had reached his final countdown. The stage for the Magic was a cold, mostly meaningless Saturday night game at Madison Square Garden against the struggling New Jersey Nets. The arena was half full. The mood was apathetic. The Knicks were a joyless team, and the fans were tired of it. It was into this void of hope that coach Mike D'Antoni, out of sheer desperation, threw his last option. He put Jeremy Lin in the game. What happened next was not a sudden explosion, but a slow gathering storm. At first, it was just competent. A good pass, a smart drive, an energy that stood in stark contrast to the team's listless play. The crowd began to stir, not with excitement, but with curiosity. Who was this guy? Then, the storm began to build. He wasn't just managing the game, he was controlling it. He attacked the rim with a fearless, almost reckless abandon. He ran the pick and roll with the poise of a 10-year veteran. He took an all-star point guard in Darren Williams and made him look ordinary. As his confidence grew, so did the magic. He drove into the lane, hung in the air, and finished an impossible, twisting layup that brought the crowd to its feet. Announcer Mike Breen's simple, astonished "wow" was the only word that fit. The Garden, an arena that has seen everything, was witnessing something it had never seen before. A complete unknown, a player on the brink of oblivion, had just single-handedly resurrected a dead game and a dead building. He finished with 25 points, and the Knicks won. A great story, a perfect one-night farewell. But the magic was just beginning. 2 nights later, with the team's stars, Carmelo Anthony and Amari Stoudemire, out with injuries, the entire weight of the franchise fell onto Lin's shoulders. And he was even better. 28 points, 8 assists. The fluke was becoming a pattern. The pattern became a phenomenon when he went on the road and outdueled John Wall, the #1 pick from his draft class.
Every hero's journey requires a dragon to be slain, a final test on the grandest stage. For Jeremy Lin, that test came on a Friday night at a sold-out Madison Square Garden. The opponent was the Los Angeles Lakers and their king, Kobe Bryant. Before the game, Kobe, when asked about Linsanity, was famously dismissive.
You been following that story at all?
What?
Jeremy Lin, are you following that story at all?
No idea. I know who he is, but I don't really know what's going on too much.
He was tired of hearing about this kid from Harvard. This was his stage, and he was not about to be upstaged. This was the moment reality was supposed to come crashing down. Instead, the fairy tale reached its zenith. From the opening tip, Lin played like he belonged, like he was the superstar everyone had come to see. He went right at Kobe, unafraid. He pulled off a spin move on veteran Derek Fisher that was so audacious, so brilliant, it sent a wave of delirious joy through the arena. He was unstoppable. He hit jumpers, he drove to the rim, he threw dazzling passes. He wasn't just competing with Kobe, he was outplaying him. With every basket, the Garden's roar grew louder, a symphony of disbelief and pure elation. He finished the game with 38 points, a new career high, leading the Knicks to a stunning victory. The Zero had not just become a hero, he had vanquished a legend. The world was now his. The wave of Linsanity that followed was a global event. He was the most Googled person on earth. His jersey, which didn't even exist a week prior, was now the NBA's top seller. He was a symbol for every underdog, for every person who had ever been told they weren't good enough. But the story needed one more chapter, a final, perfect, cinematic moment. A few days later, in Toronto, the Knicks were down, struggling all night. But in the fourth quarter, Lin put the team on his back, orchestrating a furious comeback to tie the game in the final second. With the ball in his hands, he looked to the bench. Coach D'Antoni was calling a play. In a moment of supreme confidence, a moment that defined his entire run, Lin subtly waved him off. He was in control now. This was his story to write. The entire arena, a crowd of opposing fans, rose to its feet. They weren't cheering for their team anymore. They were cheering for the Magic. As the clock ticked down, Lin made his move, pulled up from the three-point line, and released the ball. It hung in the air for an eternity, a perfect arc against a backdrop of silent anticipation. And then
5, 4, Lin for the win! Got it!
Of course, that level of pure magic is unsustainable. The real world eventually intrudes. The stars returned, the team's chemistry faltered, the coach who believed in him quit, and an injury brought his season to a premature end. The Knicks, in a move of baffling short-sightedness, let him leave that summer. The Linsanity era in New York was over as quickly as it had begun. But the legacy of those 17 days was never about what came next. It wasn't about the solid 9-year career that followed, or even the NBA championship he would eventually win as a veteran role player. The legacy of Linsanity is the magic itself. It's the proof that for a fleeting, brilliant moment, the impossible can become real. It's the ultimate zero to hero story, a modern fairy tale that reminds us why we watch sports in the first place, to witness something we will never forget. For 17 days, a kid who was forgotten by everyone became the king of the entire world.